On June 17, 2021, President Joseph R. Biden signed into law a federal holiday naming Juneteenth as a federal holiday. Juneteenth is referred to as Emancipation Day. It is referred to as, Libertarian Day. It is referred to as the Day of Jubilee. It is referred to as Freedom Day. Freedom Day. Today's title is Why Juneteenth? Why Juneteenth? I was watching the news this past weekend, and I saw the media go out and they were talking with different people who were involved in Juneteenth. And they were talking about why they were there and all of their causes and what they were doing. I'd like to say we cannot assume that everyone understands the meaning of Juneteenth. We cannot assume that people understand the significance of the day. So why Juneteenth? Let's get here. I'm going to read from the National Archives, and this article is written by a Mr. Michael Davis with the National Archives. And the title of the news piece is called National Archives Safeguards Original Juneteenth Order. That's the Juneteenth Order number 3 that Major General Gordon read out loud in Galveston, Texas, informing the people of Texas that all enslaved people were free. Let's see what he wrote. It says, Washington, D.C., June 9th, 2020. On June 9th, he is rehearsing the history of Juneteenth. On June 19, 1865, 2.5 years after President Abraham Lincoln's historic Emancipation Proclamation, U.S. Major General Gordon Granger issued Order Number 3, which informed the people of Texas that all enslaved people were now free. Granger commanded the headquarters in Galveston, Texas, at the District of Texas. So he headed this headquarters, and from the headquarters in Galveston, Texas, with his troop having just arrived the day before, Granger issued this order telling all of the people of Texas, 2.5 years after President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1, 1863, there were still Negroes who did not know that the Civil War had ended and that enslaved people had been made free by that document. I want to read something here now from the Observer, which is dated Wednesday, June 16, 2021. The Observer is a newspaper that is in the river parishes in Louisiana. A staff writer wrote in Laplace, collective memory suggests that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves when the Emancipation Proclamation went into effect on January 1, 1863. Out here in Louisiana's river parishes and throughout the nation, Juneteenth is remembered as the day of the enslaved, when the enslaved were free. News didn't travel quickly in the 1800s, and nearly 2.5 years had passed before the Emancipation Proclamation was enforced in parts of Texas. Commemorating this day when General Gordon Granger rode into Texas on June 19, 1865, to affirm the legal rights of formerly enslaved persons. The holiday is now known as Freedom Day, Jubilee Day, Libertarian Day. It is also called Freedom Day. It is also called the Emancipation Day. And it says here, Jubilee Day, Libertarian Day, Juneteenth is observed annually with festivals of celebration throughout the nation since June 16, 2021, when June 17, when President Joseph R. Biden signed into law making Juneteenth a federal holiday. You know, and I had always wondered, I heard about General Order Number 3 issued by Major General Gordon Granger in Galveston, Texas. I heard about that. And the curious nature that I am, I was like, what did that order say? Exactly what were the words? See, today we celebrate Juneteenth as a national federal holiday, and we just know that it exists. But it didn't just happen. Just like President Joseph R. Biden had to sign a document making Juneteenth a federal holiday, there were written words on a piece of paper that Gordon Granger, General Major Gordon Granger, had to read. It wasn't just that the day happened. And I have always wondered, what did it say? What was General Order number 3? I'm going to read it here, and I'm reading. I sat down. I found the original handwritten document in the U.S. National Archives, and I zoomed in and zoomed out and scrolled across the page because I wanted to transcribe every word. And in my transcribing of every word, there was only one word that I couldn't read. And I couldn't read the names of the staff members, the troops that were with Gordon Granger, and that was in General Order Number 2. So I'm going to read from the U.S. Archives.gov exactly what it says. It says, General Order Number 3 states, the people of Texas are informed in accordance with a proclamation from the executive of the United States, being Abraham Lincoln, all slaves are free. This involves absolute equality of personal rights and property between former masters and the enslaved, and the connection thereto existing between them become now employer and hired labor. The freedmen, former slaves, are advised that they should remain quietly at their present home and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts and that they will not be supported in idleness, either there or elsewhere. So in this order, this part, he's saying, look, y'all free, but don't come to the military post expecting a handout. Don't expect people to take care of you now that you're free and you're going to become idle. He said, I want to read that again. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts, and they will not be supported in the idleness either there or elsewhere, at their home or military posts. A lot of people may not realize we have the original document. This is what the National Archives is saying. They may not realize that we have the original documents in our holding. One of our public affairs specialists reached out to me to see if we actually had the order. So look, there was somebody besides me who wanted to know what General Order Number 3 said. Let's read it one more time. It's really short. The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves absolute equality of personal rights and personal property between former masters and slaves, and the connection hereto existing between them becomes that between an employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and to work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts and that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere. This was written, was read, was put into effect on June 19, 1865 in Galveston, Texas. I have a grandson, my middle one, JC. And I think about a year ago, we were talking about his schoolwork. And I said to him, how's class, how's school going, this and that? He said, there's only one class I don't like. I said, what is that? He said, history. I just don't like history. I said, boy, you live in Texas. Galveston, Texas is right next door to you. He's from Houston. And he was like looking dumbfounded at me. I said, boy, you live in history. You can write a book report on Juneteenth every day of the year. Every time they tell you to do a book report, you just do it on Juneteenth because that history is at your back door. Help me, Holy Ghost. Today, many people are enjoying the barbecue, the music, the authentic African clothing. They are enjoying a day off. They are enjoying all of that, but they have no knowledge, no understanding of the holiday. Why Juneteenth? Why Juneteenth? I don't know, they might say. Juneteenth was put into effect, was signed as a federal holiday by President Joseph R. Biden on June 17, 2021. It was to make it an official holiday, to commemorate the end of slavery in the United States of America. I want to read one more time. I often ask, what does General Order Number 3 say? General Order Number 3, let's go to the top. On June 19, 1865, 2.5 years after President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, U.S. Major General Gordon Granger issued General Order Number 3. Which informed the people of Texas that all enslaved people were now free. Granger commanded the headquarters district at Texas. And in this order, General Order Number 3, very short, gonna read it again. The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with the proclamation from the Executive of the United States, that would be President Abraham Lincoln, all slaves are free. This involves absolute equality of personal rights and personal property between former masters and slaves, and the connection hereto existing between them, it becomes now as employer and hired labor. The freedmen, the formerly enslaved, are advised that they should remain quietly at their current homes and work for wages, become employees. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts, and they will not be supported in idleness, either there or anywhere else. Juneteenth, 1865, is not just about the picnic. It's not just about the barbecue. It's not just about my t-shirt that says Juneteenth, 1865, my national holiday, the Independence Day actually for the African American in the United States of America. I said President Joseph R. Biden signed into law on June 17th, 2021. It's Dominique. Hey, T. Okay. Hey, baby. How are you doing? You're here with your mom. Thank you for being with us. So President Joseph R. Biden signed into law making Juneteenth a federal holiday just 4 years ago on June 17, 1865. And like I said, I saw a news broadcast, and they went to a few of the participants at the event. I guess they're called vendors. And they were asking them what they were doing here and this and that. But nobody addressed the issue of June 19, 1865 marked the end of slavery in the United States. They were saying that we are here for some medical, I can't remember what it was for, I don't know, let's just say Autism Day. They were here for this type of awareness and that type of awareness, but they did not make mention of the understanding of what Juneteenth was. We can't assume that everybody knows what Juneteenth is. I remember it was the second year that we celebrated Juneteenth as a family in Gulfport, and it was like a small family reunion. I talked to a man, and I don't know, I wasn't trying to be coy or make him seem stupid or whatever. Either he asked me what Juneteenth holiday was, or I said, do you know what it was? But whatever the case was, the brother didn't know what Juneteenth was. And I took the opportunity to explain to him that Juneteenth, June 19, 1865, was the day that all African Americans, enslaved people, were told that the Civil War had ended and Negroes were free throughout the United States of America. Now, we know that America still has problems. Now, we know that number 45 and his crew of degenerates are seeking to reverse the time past January 1, 1863. They want to undo the effect of the Emancipation Proclamation. They want to make Caucasianism a supremacy being. But we must stand firm and understand what this day is really about. It's not about the picnic. It's not about the African attire. It's not about a day off. It's the day that the enslaved people, 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, 2.5 years, people were still working as slaves. Think about it today. Think in the terms of slavery, about trafficking females, about trafficking people, about selling people to work in horrible locations, sweatshops. You get kidnapped and you're thrown somewhere and you become enslaved and your life seems to be over unless some chance you escape that. Well, the whole nation of African Americans were enslaved. Again, General Order number 3 says the people of Texas are informed in accordance with a proclamation from the executive of the United States that all slaves are free. So when someone asks you, what does Juneteenth mean? It means that all people of Texas, now everybody else in America is assumed to have known that all people were free. Enslaved people were free. But here in Galveston, Texas, that's why it says Texas, because Texas was the last holdout. Texas hold them. Texas held them. Did not want to let them go. So the executive had to write an order number 3 and said, General Gordon Granger, you're down there in Texas. That's your headquarters. I need you to let these people know that all enslaved people are free. So if someone asks you, what does Juneteenth mean? It is not just it's a federal holiday. It is not just that it's a good time to get together, a barbecue or whatever. You need to know and understand that June 19, 1865 had to do with the freeing, the notification, because we had already been free on January 1, 1863, with Lincoln signing the Emancipation Proclamation. But Texas decided to hold them, not to let go. This involves absolute equality of personal rights and personal property between former masters and slaves. And the connection heretofore thereafter between them becomes employer and hired labor. The freedmen, meaning former slaves now, are advised that they shall remain quietly encouraged to remain quietly at their home where they live now on the plantation to work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to just collect at military posts. Let's just go hang out at the military gate and see what we can get. Can we get a handout? You will not be allowed to do that, and you will not be supported by being idle. Martin Luther King spoke at the March on Washington on August 28, 1963, 50 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. Let's see what he says. I read this earlier this morning and I was thinking, that's good. Martin Luther King wrote, y'all be patient with me. This is what Juneteenth is about. And I heard in the news media, we're here for autism. We're here for this. We're here for that. And nobody made mention that Juneteenth was actually the commemoration date that slavery ended in America, with General Order number 3 being read out loud by Major Gordon Granger in Galveston, Texas. Martin Luther King spoke. He said, I have the pleasure to be present with you today. He's talking to the crowd at the March on Washington. They were marching for freedom and for jobs. Martin Luther King said, I'm happy to join you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration of freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, 50 years ago, Martin Luther King said, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand here today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon of light to millions of people, of Negro slaves, who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. And Martin Luther King says, but 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, he says, when y'all gonna be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is victim of unspeakable horrors of police brutality. That's still happening today. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating for whites only. No, we are not satisfied, Martin Luther King said, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I have a dream, Martin Luther King said, that one day the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and sons of former slave owners, will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. We're still having a dream today. The dream is still happening today because, see, the current political realm is trying to reverse the progress that has been made. And many Negroes are standing by and thinking it's just some political game. My vote don't matter. Who I choose don't matter. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, where I live, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, that it will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. Mississippi is still not there. We are one of the reddest states, the most racist states still in America. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day in Alabama, with its vicious racist, with its governor having his lips dripping words of interpretation, and nullification, that one day, right down in Alabama, little black boys and black girls and little white girls and white boys will be able to join hands as sisters and brothers. Yes, I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain and the crooked will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord will be revealed and all flesh shall see it. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed and all flesh shall see it. America today don't want to hear a darn thing about God. But Martin Luther King was standing here. He said that the glory of the Lord will be revealed and all flesh shall see it. You watch MSNBC, Joy Reid, anything that has to do with God. Oh, we Christian nation. I'm a Christian. I'm a believer. I love God. But you can't lump me in with Mike Johnson, the Senate, the guy in the Congress. You can't lump me in with Trump, who don't even know how to hold a Bible up right side up. You can't lump me in with the people who ran and destroyed January 6th. You can't lump all Christians together. It is not that we're trying to create a nationalist state on Christianity, but Christianity is a faith. It is what you live by. It is your convictions. And Martin Luther King said here, I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted and every mountain hill and mountain shall be made low. The things that are high, that they come down. The things that are low, the Negro, that y'all come up. The rough places will be made plain. That this thing with Jim Crow will be all smoothed out. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed. And all eyes shall see it together. But just because they see it, it doesn't mean that they will accept it. But the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. He said, this is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, conviction, we will be able to hew out the mountain of despair a strong hope. That's the goal. To have a strong hope that America can be what she is expected to be, what she says she is. We're going to get to a song, My Country 'Tis of Thee, sweet land of liberty, land where my fathers died, land where the pilgrims pried from sea to shining sea. This is our hope. This is our faith, our conviction that we will go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair. We will be able to hew out of the nastiness, the ugliness of this 2024 campaign of racism, of conspiracy theories, of hate, of separatism, of segregation, that we'll be able to hew out of this despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of the nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. That we'll be able to fellowship with people that don't look like us. That we don't have to harbor hate. Even if they hate me, I don't have to harbor hate. I got, somebody was bold enough that I personally know sent me a message on Messenger talking about there will be bloodshed. And if I understood him correctly, he was basically saying he agreed with the chaos that the Trump campaign is seeking to sow in the 2024 election, which is to say right now, oh, it's stolen. Whether we win or lose, we're going to say that the campaign, that the election was fraudulent because they want to undo democracy. They want to do away with this thing that we live upon, the hope that we had, the stone of hope for freedom in America at that point was for the African American. Just to get a job. The March on Washington had to happen for employment. There are many, many, many African Americans who work in the government. Could have never done that before. And yet so many of them have become ignorant and blinded by the dollar, by association, to not speak the truth to power. This is our hope. This is our faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair of hope, a stone of hope. With faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing we will one day be free. 100 years after, and I earlier said 50, 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, Martin Luther King is standing at the Washington Memorial. I think it is. And he is speaking to the largest crowd ever in support of freedom and jobs. And he's saying, with this faith, with our conviction, we will be able to work together. And he wasn't just talking to Negroes. There weren't just Negroes there. There were people from all races, and there was Cheney. These people died. Gordon, Michael Cheney, Gordon. These are the three that died, civil rights workers that died in Mississippi. Forgive me for not being able to call their name. Knowing that we will one day be free. Those people didn't just lay down their life. I think one was a Jew, one was white, and the black one. They all came together in brotherhood, knowing that we would be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will actually be able to sing with a new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And Martin Luther King closed by saying, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. You say, oh, we hear this is a preaching thing. This is Sunday morning. She's talking about this. Well, I'm going to take you to the word now. In Psalm chapter 44, we're going to go, I think, through verse 13. It says, David is praying and he's talking to God. With our own ears, we have heard it, O God. Our ancestors have told us about it, about the great things you did in their times in the days long ago. How you drove out the heathen and you established your people in the land. How you punished the other nations and caused your own people to prosper. You did not conquer the land. Your people did not conquer the land with their swords. They did not win it by their own power. It was by your power and by your strength, by your assurance and your presence, which showed that you love them. You are my King and my God, and you give victory to your people. And by your power, we defeat our enemies. I do not trust in my bow or in the sword to save me, but you have saved us from our enemies and defeated those that hate us. We will always praise you and give thanks to you forever. David said, we have heard it. We have heard it with our own ears. This is why I'm saying you cannot assume that everybody understands what Juneteenth is about, that it commemorates the end of slavery in America at Galveston, Texas. This past week, I was at a meeting, at a luncheon. I was at a luncheon and I was seated at a table with three white people, one Hispanic woman, and a black woman. And I began to talk about Juneteenth because it was Father's Day. It was a women's conference, but because it was Father's Day, we had a man there sitting at the table. And as I brought up Juneteenth, I could tell how uncomfortable. I was basically saying that I was going to have this booth of history at Gulfport's Juneteenth festival on June 23rd in Gulfport. It's a week-long event that starts on Wednesday. and that I was going to display the historical research project that I did to make my family's history enter into the Library of Congress. That's where our book is in the National Library of Congress. This man was obviously uncomfortable with the conversation. But here was the thing. I do believe it was his mother-in-law sitting across the table from me. Her name was Georgia. And I looked at her and I said, "You look so familiar. Did you ever work at the library? Did you ever do genealogy?" I said, "Did you work in Biloxi?" And she said, "Yes, I worked in Gulfport and Biloxi." I said, "But you worked in Biloxi, right?" I said, "The book that I'm telling you about, you helped me do research." I said, "I need to edit the book and put your name in there as a contributor, because this woman showed me not only how to use Ancestry.com. She's a white woman. But I said, you taught me about the Latter-day Saint books, the Catholic books that had history of African Americans long before the census, because Louisiana was a territory. So that involved Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi. It was a territory. Florida, I believe. And this woman, when I was doing all the research in the beginning, she taught me how. She pointed me. She showed me how. But when the conversation came up, I do believe it was her son-in-law. He was not comfortable with the situation. And when I said that I ought to name her as a contributor in the book, he smiled. And they could not believe what they were hearing, that she helped in that way. But this person that I personally know sent me a text telling me something about bloodshed in America, and it had to do with the outcome of the 2024 election. And of course, it had the word Trump in it. So I responded to his message and I said, "Jim, I don't understand this post that you just sent to me, this message you sent to me. What is this?" I haven't heard from him, but he will hear from me the next time I see him, because he will have to explain to me, one, are you one of the people who are praying and hoping for bloodshed in America? And two, why did you send this to me? I told y'all, you have to be prepared to reject the hate, the lies, the untruth when people bring it to you. You can't just let people drop stuff in your spirit and move on. Martin Luther King says, "I have a dream." 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, Gordon Granger said to the people of Texas, "The people of Texas are informed in accordance with the proclamation from the executive of the United States. All slaves are free. This involves absolute equality of personal rights and personal property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore between them is as employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their current homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts, and that they will not be supported in idleness, either there or elsewhere." That was order number 3 by General Gordon Granger, which makes up Juneteenth, 1865. That order was given by Gordon Granger on June 19th, 1865, was declared in Galveston, Texas. And this is why we celebrate, we observe Juneteenth. It is not about autism awareness. It is not about domestic violence abuse. It is not about heart disease. It is not about bipolar disorder. It is not about all the causes. It's an opportunity to discuss those things. But When someone asks the question, why are you celebrating Juneteenth? It says, the answer should always be, it is the day that African Americans were informed that all Negroes, all enslaved people were free. My shirt says July 4th, and it has a line through it. Juneteenth, 1865, because my ancestors were not free on July in 1776. My ancestors were not free July 4th, 1776. That's the national holiday. But it is not. That's our national Independence Day from Britain. But it is not Independence Day for the Negro. 1776 to 1865. Let's see what that is. 1776, 1865, 9, 1865, 1776, 9, 15, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Almost 80 years between the establishing of the nation and African Americans being made free. I'm not a good mathematician. So 1865 subtract 1776. The reason why we celebrate Juneteenth is because my ancestors on July 4th, 1776 were still coming across the border in ships. We were not made free. We were made free June 19, 1865. 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed by President Abraham Lincoln on January 1, 1863. My family celebrates Freedom Eve. Freedom Eve is December 31st of every year because the first one was December 31st, 1862. Negroes everywhere were waiting for the day to come, January 1, that Abraham Lincoln would sign this document. It had been declared that he was going to do this in the fall of 1862. And the day came. It wasn't a Christmas celebration. It was a freedom celebration that African Americans sat in churches and homes under trees and different places. They were waiting on December 31st, 1862 on Freedom Eve, waiting for the strike of midnight to hit that President Abraham Lincoln would sign the Emancipation Proclamation. And while doing all that waiting, Negroes still were enslaved in Galveston, Texas for an additional 2.5 years. To make that plain, I want you to think about the trafficking of young children, the trafficking of women across the world into prostitution, into work camps, and what things are like. Slavery still happens in America today. Politicians are trying to reverse the progress today with they just voted to get out of NATO. I think it was like 50 some odd Republican senators or GOP voted, not senators, congressmen, voted to end America's tie to NATO. Y'all, you better watch the news. Y'all better understand it. Sometimes I don't understand stuff like the stock market. And I'll say, God, give me understanding. What is that? And sometimes God will put the hunger in me to know more. It was God who put the hunger into me to know what exactly did General Order number 3 say? June 19th, 1865. That didn't come from me. But I wanted to know, and this morning I sat down and I transcribed General Order number 3, number 2, number 1. I transcribed it because I wanted to know what it said. And I wanted you to know. So thank you today for being with us. And I encourage you to get involved. I'm going to be on Sunday, June 23rd in Westside Park from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. with a history booth on our family, about how I got to write our book, the 50-year process of the book coming to be. And I say 50 because it was published 40 years after I got it. And 10 years later, we're still talking about it and things are still being revealed. We have another edition coming on because I just found a family member in California, Cynthia Williams, and she is the daughter of our great-great-great-great-grandfather, Jacques Eugene. So I'm going to be writing the history of the Eugenes in the Thompson-Eugene family. Let's do Black history a little different this year. Sit down with an elder, grab a recorder, start a conversation, and see what they have to say about your family's history. That's how you start researching Black history. You sit down at the knee of someone who is older than you, your grandmother, your great-grandmother. Get this wisdom. And I tell you to record it because you won't remember. And when they pass on, all of that history will pass on with them if you don't actively pursue to know. God bless you today and thank you for being with us. I am Evangelist Patricia Baptiste for the Kingdom Living broadcast here in South Mississippi. Happy Juneteenth. God bless you.